What do you really know about World War II? We've all seen the movies. Soldiers charging the beach, explosions everywhere. But have you ever stopped to imagine what it was really like for one of them? The fear, the noise, the cold, the chaos. Every second a fight to stay alive. In this video, we're stepping into the boots of an American soldier on D-Day and seeing the war through his eyes.
I ran through the surf, bullets slicing the water around me, the waves turning red with the blood of men I didn't know. The ramp had dropped seconds before, and half the boys from my landing craft were gone before they touched sand. My boots felt like lead, my rifle heavier than my body. All I could see ahead was smoke, fire, and a wall of steel. They said France would welcome us. All I saw was death waiting, cold and mechanical. My hands shook, but I kept moving because stopping wasn't a choice anymore. It was surrender. The air was full of sounds I'll never forget. The crack of rifles, the screams of dying men, the thud of mortars pounding the beach like God's own hammer. Sergeant Cole yelled for us to get to cover behind the tank traps, his voice cutting through the chaos. I dove behind a piece of twisted iron, sand exploding around me. Private Ellis crawled up beside me, his face pale beneath the grime. "We're all gonna die here," he muttered. I wanted to tell him no, but the lie wouldn't leave my throat. Somewhere up the beach, a flamethrower roared, and a German pillbox went up in flames. The smell of burning fuel and flesh filled the air. I forced myself not to look. "Move! Move!" the sergeant shouted again. We ran in bursts, diving and crawling, the world shrinking to the rhythm of breath and fear. I reached the seawall, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Around me, the sand was littered with rifles, helmets, and men who'd never get up again. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. I couldn't tell. Time didn't exist anymore, just survival. By afternoon, we'd taken the ridge. The beach behind us was a graveyard of uniforms and twisted metal. I remember looking back and feeling no victory, only emptiness. Ellis didn't make it. Neither did half our squad. When the medics carried the wounded away, I sat in the dirt and watched the waves roll in like nothing had happened. The sea didn't care. It just kept moving. That night we dug foxholes near the hedgerows inland. The earth was soft, the air thick with the smell of cordite and sweat. I lay staring at the sky, trying to remember home, the fields in Iowa, the sound of my mother's voice calling me in for supper. But all I could hear was the distant thump of artillery, like a heartbeat too loud to ignore. War changes the sounds of the world. Even silence feels heavy.
Morning came gray and wet, the skies swollen with smoke. We moved through the hedgerows, those damned walls of earth and tangled roots that hid everything from sight. You never saw the Germans until they fired, and by then someone was already dead. The air smelled of damp soil and cordite. Every step felt like walking into a trap. Our boots sank in mud mixed with blood. I kept thinking of Ellis, how he'd said we'd die on that beach. He wasn't wrong. Only the place had changed. We reached a small farmstead by noon. The house was half destroyed, chickens running wild, and a dead cow rotting in the field. Sergeant Cole ordered us to take positions. There were 4 of us left in our squat: me, Cole, Thompson, and Miller. Thompson was from Chicago, loud and stubborn. Miller was quiet, always clutching the photo of his wife and baby girl. We didn't talk much anymore. Talking felt like tempting fate, like speaking a name might summon death to claim it. The Germans hit us that afternoon. Mortars fell first, ripping holes in the earth, then the crack of rifles from the tree line. I remember the way dirt flew in my face, the sting of shrapnel cutting my cheek. I fired without aiming, just praying to stay alive. When it was over, Thompson was gone, vanished into smoke. We found what was left of him an hour later. Cole didn't say anything. None of us did. You stop counting after a while. You just keep walking, carrying ghosts. That night we shared a single can of beans between 3 men. Miller muttered a prayer before eating. I didn't. I wasn't sure God was still listening here. The fields glowed faintly under the moon, the hedgerows whispering in the wind like they had secrets to tell. Somewhere far off, artillery lit the horizon. I cleaned my rifle and tried not to think about home. When you stop dreaming of home, you know war's taken the last part of you that was human. Cole told me once, courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway. I held on to that. Maybe that's all that kept me going. In the dark, with the mud on my hands and the dead in my mind, I realized I was changing. I wasn't the boy from Iowa anymore. I was something else, something forged in fire and fear. I didn't know if I'd ever find that boy again.
We moved at dawn again, following narrow dirt roads between hedgerows that twisted like the veins of the earth. The rain never stopped. Everything smelled of rot, wet uniforms, mud, death. I stopped cleaning my rifle every night. It didn't seem to matter anymore. We were ghosts drifting through the countryside, killing and not thinking about it. The French villagers stared at us like we were both saviors and monsters. Maybe we were a bit of both. One morning, we passed a wagon full of bodies covered with a tarp. A little girl stood beside it, clutching a broken doll. Her eyes followed us as we marched by. She didn't cry. That silence hurt more than any bullet. I wanted to give her something, food, a word, anything, but I had nothing left inside me worth giving. War drains the soul, one heartbeat at a time. You keep moving because stopping feels like dying, even when you're still breathing. By the 3rd week, I'd stopped counting the days. We fought through small villages, names I can't remember now, just smoke and rubble. Cole took a sniper round to the leg outside St. Lo. We dragged him behind a stone wall, patched him up, and kept moving. He never complained, just clenched his jaw and told us to stay low. I started thinking of him like a father, though I never said it. He learned to love people fast out here because they disappear even faster. Miller and I were sent on recon one night. We crawled through a field thick with fog, every sound amplified, the click of a safety, the rustle of grass. Then a voice. German, close. I froze. Miller raised his rifle and fired. The shot echoed like thunder. When the fog cleared, the German was lying in front of us. Barely a boy, maybe 16. His helmet rolled away, and his eyes stared up at the sky as if searching for something above the smoke. Miller whispered, "Jesus," and turned away. I couldn't move. He looked too young to die. When we returned, Cole said nothing. He just nodded. I lay awake that night staring at the stars hidden behind the clouds. I thought about that German boy, about Alice and Thompson, and wondered if anyone would remember us when this was over, or if we'd all just fade into the mud like we were never here. The world felt endless and empty at once. The only thing that still made sense was the man beside you and the next step forward. The next morning, we pushed toward a small village near St. Lo. The road was narrow, lined with broken walls and burnt-out carts. Every window looked like an eye, every shadow a threat. Miller walked beside me, silent, his photo of his wife tucked into his helmet band. The air was heavy, still, too still. When the first machine gun opened up, it was like the world ripped apart again. We dove for cover, dirt spraying in our faces. "Pinned!" Miller shouted. I nodded, heart hammering, lungs burning. We were caught in the open. I crawled toward a ditch, bullets chewing up the ground around me. I saw the muzzle flash in an upstairs window. Without thinking, I tossed my last grenade. The explosion tore through the building. When the dust cleared, the gun fell silent. Miller clapped my shoulder, grinning through the fear. For a moment, it felt like victory. Small, desperate, but real. Then the sniper's shot cracked the air. Miller jerked backward, the smile still frozen on his face. He fell without a sound. I caught him, felt the warmth leave him too fast. Something inside me went cold. I didn't cry. I just picked up my rifle and moved forward. The others were advancing, shouting, firing, pushing through. The village fell by noon, but I barely noticed. I sat beside Miller's body as medics moved past. One of them touched my shoulder, said something I didn't hear. I stared at the photo in Miller's helmet, his wife, his baby girl, both smiling like the world had never known war. I folded it carefully and slipped it into my pocket beside Cole's tags. When night came, I stood at the edge of the village, watching the horizon burn. I thought of Ellis, Thompson, Cole, Miller, all of them. I thought of home, the fields in Iowa, the smell of rain before harvest. Maybe I'd go back there someday, plant something, build something, try to feel whole again. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't. War had taken me, the way that tide takes a shell, rolling, breaking, reshaping, until there's nothing left of what was. At dawn, we were ordered to move again. I remember standing, feeling the weight of my pack, the ache in my bones. I turned once more to the sea of smoke and shattered stone. The sun was rising, pale and cold, cutting through the mist. I took one step forward, then another, and that's when the world went white. No pain, no sound, just light. Maybe that was peace. Maybe that was the end.